Hey guys, welcome to The Stuff of Legend. My name is D'Lo, and this is my special guest today, my brother Aaron.
Hey there.
Hey, hey. So we actually are going to be doing a discussion video right now about Pacific Rim. My brother just saw it for the first time. I invited him to come on the show right now because me and him used to watch Godzilla movies all the time, Transformers all the time. I mean, we love monster films and the robots and Monsters vs. Robots. And shockingly enough, this was the first time that he had seen it, and the first time in a long time I had seen it. It's a great film. So I'm going to start asking some questions, and we're going to just have a little bit of a fan fest right now. So, first of all, Aaron, Pacific Rim, what was your idea that came into your head when I first told you about it? I mean, you hadn't really heard about it at all.
Yeah, gosh, I didn't even know what to think at that point. I kind of thought it was just like, well, I didn't even really hear much about it. I saw it one time we went to the movies, don't know when, but we saw like a poster and it said Pacific Rim 2, and with just like a picture of like a robot, and I was kind of like, oh, that looks kind of cool. I wonder what that's like. Maybe it's like a Transformers. Mm-hmm. But I kind of heard more about it. I kind of heard that it was like a cross between like Godzilla and Transformers, kind of put into one movie.
Right.
And you kind of have this expectation now, like when I was, we kind of planned to watch this, that it was going to be more like, just kind of like a Godzilla movie or whatever, but it actually far surpassed my expectations. The whole time I was kind of like on edge, and it was really fun.
Right?
It was a lot of fun to watch.
I saw online there was a bunch of people that had talked about the film, and they said essentially that it was like Power Rangers for adults. It's like this team of people that work together to pilot a single giant mech to fight monsters, and that's kind of the whole plot of like Power Rangers. It's like after you get past the ground level fighting and the monster grows to a ridiculous proportional size, they have to get inside the Zords and fight, and that's kind of like what it was here, but it was darker. There was like a doomsday apocalyptic theme. It wasn't just like Angel Grove or wherever the city was. It's like it was a big deal, and it was really cool like how they made it super. I mean, it's sci-fi, but it was science-y. It felt kind of tangible. Like there was a nuclear reactor powering the mech, and then the mind melding was too much for one person to control the mech, so they had to
work as a team.
Work as a team to support that. The whole like nosebleed thing, and
the thing that kind of makes it more fun, a little more interesting too, is that one thing that I noticed is like like for those of us who have seen like Godzilla films and whatnot, you kind of see where, just the monster shows up, Godzilla kills it or whatever, or the government kills it or whatever, and then everyone kind of goes back to normal. The kind of cool twist on it was that, they mentioned early on in the movie that, all these different groups, all these different nations and governments, they had to put aside their differences and work together for the greater good, kind of realizing that if we don't do something about this problem, we're kind of up the creek without a paddle.
Yeah.
Like, we can choose to not work together. We can choose not to work together, or we can choose to work together and we can all survive.
Yeah, and it becomes a human race thing. It's no longer...
We're fighting against extinction now.
Yeah, and so...
we put aside the politics, put aside all the garbage, all that stuff, that a lot of nations, they fight over money and greed and whatever, power... they put that aside and they realize that, like, this is, like, kind of almost like an urgent matter. Like, we need to fight together, put our finances, our resources together, everything together to...
The brightest minds.
Yeah, the brightest minds to fight this problem.
Yeah, it was a really cool twist how the monsters aren't coming from Earth either. It's an interdimensional thing, and it's a giant portal. They call it the Breach. And, the further along the thread carries, out of first years, and then it cuts to months, then it's weeks, and now it's days, and it's exponentially increasing in threat, and they have that clock inside of the Shatter Dome, the giant, like, facility where they have all the mechs together of all the super teams from the world. Australia, China, they have a bunch of teams there. And that clock keeps running down, and then once what was his name, Dr. Newton, the guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, he was really funny, but he mind melded with the kaiju, and then that actually synchronized with them. So then they were all of a sudden trying to seek him out and find him. They ended up finding him in Hong Kong when he went to find Hannibal. I forget what his name. It was Ron Perlman's character, Hannibal Chow, and he did a great job. It was really funny. And, I like how he had, the guy that was the merchant for underground kaiju body parts. He was like the only other person that had ever mind melded with somebody with a kaiju, and he, that's why he wore the goggles all the time. He took it off and he's all, I did it too, and it was like, he's like, never do it, and then he ends up getting eaten by the by the baby, which was really funny surprise.
Yeah, that is kind of ironic. But the one thing that I kind of noticed, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, is that like I said, we sat down to watch the movie, kind of just like put my expectations here, for monster films, because I mean, I love monster films. We both have since we were kids.
Yeah.
But the truth be told, is that they can be corny. They can be low budget. They can be. They have a bad reputation for that, and that kind of stinks. That kind of stinks, especially when because especially when you go back to like the old Godzilla films where they're like in these like costumes, like Halloween costumes,
Rodans hanging from a string,
and just like My point being behind all this, for monster films, it has a bad reputation. So you put your expectations here. You sit down with your popcorn and you're kind of like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. Like, or at least what the storylines like maybe the fighting's good, maybe the monsters are kind of big and crazy. I mean, that's cool and all, but like, let's see if they're going to actually add a cool twist to the story. Yeah. And the thing that really caught me is when Charlie Day, or Dr. Newton, is when he, when he drifted with the kaiju, he was able to see that they were, it's like almost as if they were taking orders to, like, erase, the human race. Like, they want, so that was like, oh, snap, like, this is, like, there's actual, like, alien, intelligence and stuff like that. There's, like, it's kind of deeper, there's, like, a deeper plan. It's not just, like, monsters coming out of the deep and, like, wanting to, like, trample people and kill people. It's like, oh, they're actually, like...
They're, like, hunting dogs for a master race.
And they have a bigger purpose. It's, like, it's kind of, like... It's like, oh, that's what kind of captivated me a little bit. I was like, oh, okay, this is cool now. Like, I really like this.
Yeah.
They put some thought into it. They really thought it out, I think.
Another thing that was really cool about that was that the monsters, even though they were clones, even though he said that they had the exact same DNA and they were all being grown from the same source, the writers decided to make each of the monsters still look different.
Exactly,
and it becomes more iconic for us because, like, when you're a fan of Godzilla, all the monsters are different. Like there's Mothra, there's Batra, there's Meganuris. There's like King Ghidorah. There's like all kinds of monsters, and they all look a little bit different. They're all big. Most of them are scaly, but then one of them has 3 heads, or one of them is on the ground with an armadillo back and
or one of them is a robot that's being influenced by aliens, or you got like some other crazy twist to, like, the whole monster idea.
Yeah, the whole idea of kaiju is it could be anything. Anything could be a monster, technically.
It could be a giant insect, or it could be a giant lizard. It could be a giant monkey. It's like,
exactly,
it could be anything.
Like Kong Skull Island, that one set a new. I'm gonna do a review of that one, and I think I want you to be on that one.
Yes, that was pretty interesting. That was cool.
I think for the most part, he's gonna be my monster guy for most all of my monster movies. I've got another guy in mind, but we might do a round table style, so that one will be really cool to have like a group setting. But
that'll be fun.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be a blast. But there's actually, like I had mentioned earlier, there's a Pacific Rim 2 coming out, and the trailer for that should be. I think it's already out. I think they already released the trailer. But I'm going to I think I'll go see that one opening weekend because Pacific Rim rocks.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun to watch, yeah.
It was such a good one.
It was cool.
So Idris Elba is no longer going to be a part of the franchise unless it's in flashback format because, spoiler alert, he gives his life for the cause and they're able to overcome the situation in the first movie. But, man, he did such a good job. Yeah. He provided so much emotion and like power. his voice is so striking when you hear it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it was also very cool because I kept wondering, I'm like, you know, for those of you that haven't seen the movie yet, I was kind of wondering, like, why does he keep getting like random nosebleeds? I was like, is it because of the high elevation or whatever? You know, and I was kind of like wondering that, you know, because I remember the first time I can't remember exactly when in the movie that he had the first nosebleed, but I was like, oh, that's kind of random. Why would they put that in there? And then it happened again, and then you're like, okay, this has to have something to it. There's a reason why. He's having just like random nosebleeds, and then
he kept taking the pill for it and everything.
Yeah, and then he later on explains that it's because he had to single-handedly like power the what's it called again?
The Jaeger. The Jaeger.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason why is because like, you know, it's just too much for the human body to handle.
So he did explain that he was one of only 2 people to successfully solo pilot a Jaeger. It was him and Charlie Hunnam's character. Rayleigh, or Raleigh is how he has it pronounced in the movie. He gets made fun of for calling it Rayleigh. It's Raleigh. But Raleigh's character and the Marshal, they were the only ones successfully to solo pilot because it's too much for the mind, but they were able to do it. But then also, back then when the Jaeger program first started, he was one of the original pilots, and they didn't know about radiation shielding at the time. So they hadn't figured that out for the mechs yet. So he had overexposure to radiation, which was causing him radiation poisoning, you know, whatever's causing the nosebleeds in his brain failure, I guess. I don't know what it was, but he was dying nonetheless. And that was a really interesting plot twist. And then he knowingly, he knows that if he ever pilots a Jaeger again, he will likely die because his mind can't handle the drifting process, what's it called, the neural handshake?
Yeah, neural handshake.
The neural handshake. It can't handle that at this point. It's been too beaten up. But he chooses to, at the end of the film, to co-pilot with the Toolbag's son. I forget what his name was exactly, but it's Hercules' son. I think it was like Chris or something, or
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Don't quote us on it.
Don't quote us on that. But he did a good job, and it was very epic, that last battle with the Category 5 kaiju. It was so cool. And the whole battle happened underground at the bottom of the ocean floor too.
So they're moving slower. It's a little more like, it keeps you on your edge. You're kind of like, oh, okay, let's see how this is going to go. You know,
darker, it's harder. It's kind of harder to see. Like, you know, you can't tell where the monsters are, and then all of a sudden they'll swim in front of the camera and stuff. And it had such a good feel for a monster movie. It was amazing. Yeah. Whether you like monster movies or not, it was a good movie overall, and I think that if you go see it, I think you'll have a good time. If you like monster movies, this will probably be one of the better ones you've ever seen. It was really good. Yeah. And I would recommend that to anybody.
I would give it like maybe...
As a movie, not a monster movie, what would you rank it?
7.5, 8. And I'm a critic, by the way. I'm
an optimist, and he's more of a critic.
So for me to say like 7.5, 8, like that's kind of a lot. So, and you know,
I would have given it a solid 8, possibly an 8.3.
And just because it exceeded my expectations for a monster film, and now I'm actually very excited for the new one. I really can't wait. The only thing that might top it is the Godzilla versus King Kong movie that's coming out in 2020. That might actually top. That might top it if they handle their deck of cards right.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I loved how in Kong as well, the monsters that were on the island, I forgot what, the skull crawlers.
Yeah, skull crawlers.
Skull crawlers, they looked like kind of like Rodans. You know, they all kind of looked like that bird-like formation, and they moved swiftly. And then there was the giant one at the end. I thought at first that was a Rodan cameo. But yeah, so Aaron, what would you give it, a thumbs up? Thumbs down?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
It was good.
Thumbs up. It was great. You guys should go see it. I'll probably cover some more monster films in the very near future. Right now I'm working on stuff like Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm doing a review for the Lego Batman movie, which is insane. The entire movie is a giant cameo and Easter eggs and everything. It's like it's just nonstop, so it's a lot to dig through. But that's gonna be a lot of fun. So stay tuned there. And yeah, thanks for coming, Aaron. Thanks for watching the movie with me. And this was a fun interview. I'll have you on for the next one too. We'll cover Godzilla and we'll cover Kong as well. All right, guys. You stay tuned. If you liked what you saw, like, share, and subscribe for more. And if you hated it, well, please share it with your enemies. And I'll see you next time on The Stuff of Legend.